let's get into the conversation now, because many of you, have been complaining. You've reached out to us. You've complained about how your vehicles are giving you problems because of the fuel you buy. You say, I've had to change my plugs in less than 2 months. And my car is jacking. So this morning, we decided to bring in studio the National Petroleum Authority. And we have in studio the head of economic regulation of the NPA, Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, who's here with us. We'll also be joined via Zoom by Ubedella Said Kutia, who's head quality control of the NPA. Abbas, good morning once again, and thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome, Winston.
So for us, we know that we're buying the right fuel. We know that NPA will do its job. So when we go and buy fuel, we'll not have a problem. Then all of a sudden, we're buying fuel, and our plugs are getting damaged. We have to change them, sometimes twice in 2 months, when we never used to experience these things. Why must we go through these problems when you are supposed to be ensuring that we consume the right fuel?
So, Winston, you've asked a very important question, a very good question, let me say. It's unfortunate that consumers have had to go through such experiences. It's frustrating. I have a lot of friends, let me say even myself, I've been a victim of this.
Even
and
you?
Yes. Even
You've
myself,
had to change your plugs?
I have had to change my plugs.
How many times?
So I've changed my plugs, say twice in the past 3 months.
Twice in the past 3 months?
Yes. So
and prior to this, had you changed your plugs?
Yeah, so like prior to this, I changed my plugs. I think that was January, and ideally, I shouldn't have changed again this year, but I had to. So with this experience, myself and some of my other colleagues, and we started getting a lot of complaints from consumers. Somewhere, I think, let me say, the past 2-3 months, the number of complaints coming in from consumers increased. So I have to admit that this is very, very of a concern to us as a regulator, and we've had, since we started having these complaints, we've had several meetings, several engagements, trying to find out what really the issue is. Why did we have to do this? First of all, as a regulator, our mandate is to ensure that consumers are getting fuel that meets the national standard. As we are all aware, the National Authority sets standards for several products, and including fuel in the country. And we, as the National Petroleum Authority, have to ensure that the fuels coming into the country have met these standards.
Exactly.
And from the work we do, one of the very first line of check is to ensure that if a fuel is being imported into the country or being produced locally, before it gets to the market, it should have met that national standard. And we've been doing this all the time. So from our checks and our records and the kind of involvement we have with the inspection companies, all the fuels that have been coming to the country have met the standard. And
when you talk about standards, let me just come in at this point. What are those standards?
So let's take petrol, for example. The Ghana National Authority will set a standard specifying several parameters that petrol should meet. There are several parameters in petrol. It's a chemical product. So, for example, you have the sulfur level, you have the manganese level, you have the research octane number, which we call the RON level. There are several other parameters, density. There are so many other parameters, whether the product has alcohol or not, whether it has lead or not. So all of these parameters, we have limits that they must meet. So when the product is coming to the country, we have to make sure that we take a sample, we test it, and if the standard says it must meet 1, we have to make sure it has met that standard. So that's what we do. So we check that all the parameters have been met, all the specifications have been met before the products are allowed into the country.
Okay.
And like I said, as a regulator, we do this, and all the products that have come into the country, per our standards, per our checks, have met the national standard that has been set by the Ghana National Authority. So we are quite alarmed. So we had to do a lot more investigation to really find out what is causing these challenges consumers are facing. Because like I said, myself, I've had this issue where you are driving and your car is jacking, and you are wondering what is the problem. So our checks really show that the manganese levels in the fuel, from what we realized, could have been the cause. How did we find out this?
Okay, hold on. Could have been the cause.
Yes.
We would interrogate that. But the manganese levels, what are the standards? What do the standards say?
Okay, so if you look at the current Ghana standard for petrol, it allows manganese of up to a maximum of 80 milligrams per liter.
A maximum of
80 maximum of 80 milligrams per liter. So it means anything from 0 to 18 is allowed.
And in Europe, what's the allowable?
So in Europe, they have different standards. So if you look at, they have what they call the Euro 4 standard. The Euro 4 standard allows a maximum of 6 milligrams per liter. And then Euro 5 standard allows for a maximum of 2 milligrams per liter. So that's a standard.
That's a standard.
Yeah, in Europe. Yeah.
In Europe, and we are doing 18.
Yes.
Any reason why? Okay, well, you're under the Ghana Standards Authority, but I'm sure you may have found that because it affects fuel. Why we decided to go for the maximum of 18?
Yes. So I think my colleague Said, when it comes, he may give more insight into this. But Ghana standards have been revised over the years. Every now and then we revise our standard. Let me say that the current standard we are using was even revised last year. So certain sections of the standards are revised based on new knowledge and experience that we have, and every now and then either MP or other members of the standards committee will make a recommendation for us to look at certain parameters in the standard. So we'll be revising our standards from the 1990s. Every now and then we revise them. Before this 2022 revision, the last time we did a revision was in 2017 when we revised the sulfur levels. Last year the revision had to look at certain aspects of it, like the density and some of the iron contents and all that. So every now and then the standards are reviewed. So if you look at what we use here, our standards have also previously looked at the local manufacturing capacity. You know, at a point in this country, Tor was the sole supplier of petroleum products, where they import crude oil, they refine, and then we consume. We got to a point where we had to now start importing because Tor could not meet our full demand. So what we have to now look at is to kind of compare our standard to import level. So we started amending our standards in line with the import, the international standards. So, but then we've always been very, very careful to make sure that in amending our standards, we do not put Tor out of business. So every now and then when we amend our standards, we have to also take into consideration the local refinery capacity and to check whether they can meet those standards. So even at a point when we have to, for example, reduce our sulfur levels to levels that Tor could not meet, we have to make some consideration for Tor and grant them some waivers. That's for local refinery.
But is that what the vehicles need?
So
that should be the most important thing. These levels, are they the levels that are good for our vehicles? If Tor can't meet it, then Tor should be putting in place the right equipment to meet it, isn't it?
So I'm happy you brought that angle in. So is that what the vehicle needs? So like I mentioned, the standards, the committee that the Ghana Standards Authority has for standard is not made up of just MPA. There are several other stakeholders on that committee. There's academia, there's industry, there are car, now we have the Ghana Automobile Association, so we have some car manufacturers there. We have the importers, we have the marketers, we have the refinery. So everyone is on there. And what we do is that based on your experience and what you know, you make inputs as to what should be used. So for the car manufacturers, for example, they will know what kind of fuels are required for certain types of vehicles. Now, you realize I mentioned that for every parameter, there's a maximum allowable level. So for example, if you take sulfur may be high, but it doesn't mean that it damages your vehicle. So there are levels, and sometimes we amend these standards for environmental purposes. In the case of manganese, you will notice that for those of us who are complaining about the damage to our plugs, we use a certain type of car. So those cars, most of us didn't really check the manuals to know what kind of fuel it requires. Okay. Not everyone who is using a petrol engine, for example, is having this challenge. So that's where we should have come in to find out, okay, for the fuel we use, when Ghana Standards Authority amends the standards and put them in the public domain, for example, has anyone come back to say that let's look at the manganese level because the kind of vehicles that are coming to the system now, they don't require this kind of fuel. That was not happening.
Okay, I'll get back to you on this because this morning we're joined by Obedala Said Kutia, who's head quality control of the NPA, National Petroleum Authority. He's joined us on Zoom. He's on Zoom now. We'll be speaking to him shortly. And Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, who's head economic regulation of the NPA. Because you complained about challenges with the fuel and how it was affecting your plugs and everything, and you had to change your plugs, it was affecting your vehicle movement and all. We decided to have this conversation and understand what the problems are. Ubedela, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Hello? If you could kindly unmute so we can hear you, Ubedela. Said Kutia, if you can unmute your microphone so we can hear you. Okay, I think he can't hear us. Once he unmutes his microphone, we'll get back to him and have that conversation because it's very important for us to understand, for instance, why, because, Abbas, we are now talking about reducing. We're not talking about even the standards, tightening it. So instead of the 18 milligrams 18 milligrams per liter, we're now thinking of 6.
Yeah, so maximum 6 for the regular petrol, and then maximum 2 for the premium grade. We have 2 grades of petrol in the country. The premium grade is a minimum of 95. and then the regular grade is a minimum raw 91.
Okay, so let me just come this way. Prior to this problem, we were using the same fuels. We did not experience this problem. So what is it that was contained in the fuel this time around that many people began complaining?
So, we are coming back to the same issue about the manganese. Like I said, we found out that the cause is the manganese level.
Yes.
And the manganese level in petrol in Ghana is maximum 18. So our checks also show that in recent times we've had some cargoes of petrol that have come in that had manganese between 12 to 17 milligrams per liter, which was still within the maximum allowable in the country. Prior to that, we used to have the petrols coming with very low manganese levels. And so for these vehicles that we realized that their manufacturers recommended that they use gasolines without any trace of manganese. When the manganese levels in some of these fuels that came in were this high, for such vehicles, they start having challenges. Most of these vehicles are the turbo engine vehicles. So you realize that cars that are not turbo engine vehicles, most of them are not having this issue. So that's when we realized that if that's the case, because vehicle manufacturers are now producing vehicles that need these Euro 4 and Euro 5 standards that we've met, and these vehicles are now coming into our system. These are most very recent vehicles. Then we might as well amend our standards so that the fuel we have meet all types of vehicles in the system. That's why we've engaged car manufacturers to also get their inputs into this. So the challenge has been that yes, we've been using these fuels all this while, but the petrols that were coming, the manganese levels were very low previously. But manganese plays a role. In refineries, they use manganese for several things, and it's one of the things they use to boost their run levels.
You see, I mean, on top of my mind, I say, if we're importing vehicles into this country, we expect the Standards Authority and by extension the NPA, which is supposed to check this, to know the vehicles that are coming into this country. Okay? And agencies should not be working in silos. So we would know the vehicles that are coming into this country. Once we know the vehicles that come into this country, we're expected to know the specifications. Once we know the specifications, we're expected to get in fuel that meets those specifications. Why did we wait for this problem before reviewing?
So I think it's unfortunate that we have had to learn the hard way. But I mentioned something about the composition of the Ghana Standards Authorities Technical Committee. It's made up of several players. So ideally, MP on its own will not go out looking for car manuals to find out what kind of fuels they use. But the Ghana Standards Authority in setting its standards allows all these different stakeholders. Yes, we are part of it.
That's what I'm saying, regulators. So, I've added you to it, regulators. I said the Ghana Standards Authority, you should have known this.
Yeah, so we play several roles there. MPA, for example, has initiated and championed the changes to some of these standards over time. Any member of the committee, for example, Ghana Automobile Association, for example, can make a case that let's look at this parameter in the standard. For example, in 2017, from 2016, MPA pushed for the reduction in sulfur levels. That was MPA. Last year, we pushed for the reduction in the amendment of the density. So any other representative of the technical committee can make a case. In any case, when the standards are drafted by these people who are represented on the committee, the Ghana Standards Authority puts it in the public domain for 60 days to take feedback from all the public. So anyone at all can make a case and say that this particular parameter, based on our knowledge of the kind of vehicles that are coming to the country as vehicle manufacturers or vehicle importers or vehicle vendors, we advise that let's look at this particular, but that has not happened.
Okay. I'll get back to you because one of the things we need to find out also is that today, if I go into the market to buy fuel, am I guaranteed the maximum 6 and 2 milligrams of manganese, the new standards? Is that what I will get? Hold on a minute. Let me get to Obadela Said Kutia, who's head of quality control. Said, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. Hello, Said. If you can unmute your microphone, please unmute your microphone, Said. Said, please unmute your microphone so we can hear you. Okay, I think Said is... I don't know if you can hear me, Said. If you can hear me, just unmute your microphone so we can all hear you. No, I don't think Said can hear us. And so we will get back to Said. But Abbas.
Yes.
For many of us, this is what we are concerned about the most. I have seen that communication you put out there saying that you've now, the maximum levels of manganese 6 and 2. So if I go into the market today, is that what I'm going to have?
So the answer to that question is no. And it is no because before you bring in fuel into the country, you go through a process. You have to place the order, ship it. It takes time before it arrives into the country. And contracts have already been made for fuel to come into the country based on the existing standard. Currently, the existing standard still allows maximum of 18 milligrams per liter. But like I mentioned earlier, the National Petroleum Authority has already called the technical committee to meet and amend the standard. Every industry player or every stakeholder has agreed that we need to amend the manganese level to the 6 for the regular and the 2 for the premium based on what we have seen now. So that has already started, but it will take some time. So as a regulator, the proactive measure we've taken is that we've engaged our importers, and everyone has agreed that, okay, even before the Ghana Sands Authority completes that process, we should all start importing based on the new agreed standards. So all new cargoes that are going to come in, which are now being ordered, those ones are going to comply with this new standard.
So for the ones that have been ordered already, if they have ordered for the next 3 months, we can't do anything about it.
So something can be done. So the good news is that we've realized that for some of the importers, some of the suppliers and marketers, there are certain additives that can be added to address this problem. So but that's a temporary measure. So because additives are also quite expensive. So a number of them are increasing the dosage of the additives they add to these fuels to address the problem. So that is correcting this. So personally, for example, where I buy my fuel, since I changed my plugs, I'm still buying fuel from there, but I've not had a problem. So adding these additives, we've realized that it's correcting that. And then going forward, the long term and the permanent measure to correct this problem is rather to reduce manganese levels, which has been agreed to. So if you go to the market now, and actually when we got the complaints, we went out there to test for consumers to confirm that the products that are in the country have made the national standard. And we realized that the manganese levels have made the national standard. So it's not as if whatever is on the market has not been a standard. So you will not go out there right now.
Hold on, you went to check when you started having these problems, but you should know whether they've met it already or not.
Winston, I think I have to mention that if you go out there, I think from the checks we did, there were actually 15 test complaints we had from certain consumers, and we went out there and tested samples of those complaints from some stations. Some of the manganese levels are actually even below 1. You get it? So like I said, it's just a consignment that came in that has caused this problem. So it's not even all turbo engine people that have had this problem. So some consignments came in that had this 12 to 17 milligrams per liter. But the majority of the product on the market as we speak right now still has very low manganese levels. So the samples that we tested, we still have a lot that were below 0.5, for example.
For me as a consumer, what I'm concerned about the most is that how sure am I that all the oil marketing companies are going to be adding these additives that you talk about so I don't experience these problems again?
So I think it's more also about education and knowing if, let's say, everyone that has had this problem, for example, majority, we encourage people to report to us. And then some have also reported directly to these oil marketing companies, and they've taken measures. So the marketing companies whose stations have had this problem have taken measures. We are aware of some of these measures. And ourselves, when these reports come to us, we reach out to these consumers and we engage them to do something about it. So it's not as if once we know who you are and where you bought your fuel from, then something can be done. But we also have to educate people to know what kind of additives can be added, because these additives also help. Even without these problems, some people are adding these additives to their fuels already to just improve the performance. Additives are just things to enhance the performance of the regular fuel. So we just want to continue to educate people that if you are having this problem, report to MPA, and then we can advise what to do. Because for you as a consumer, these are very technical issues that you will not know, but we are there to help you to address these problems.
Exactly. So since these are technical things that I don't know, what I need to know from the NPA is that if I go and buy fuel today, am I guaranteed the right fuel based on what you say you've agreed with them? So for instance, today if I go, am I sure that there are additives in that would minimize the effect of manganese on my engine?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like what I'm saying is that the standards, first of all, they've met. So you see, MPA, I mentioned that MPA plays a role.
Yeah, I mean,
MPA's role.
I agree. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that because you say that even before the other consignments come in, because people may have ordered already. But what you're doing is that you're speaking to these oil marketing companies to actually put in additives that would reduce the impact, reduce these levels. And I am saying that, how sure am I? How do I know? So I want to know, for instance, if I go out there today, am I guaranteed that if I go and buy fuel, these additives will be in there, and so my engine would not be affected?
So Winston, I think you need to understand that it's not all the gasoline in the country that has this manganese level, high manganese level, which is almost up to the maximum. It is some of them. So where there are issues like that, they are adding the additives. So if you go to the station right now to buy fuel, the fact that you are buying the fuel doesn't mean that that fuel has high manganese level. So just those small consignment that the marketers have noticed that have that, they are the ones that they are adding the additives to. So as a consumer, we are assuring you as a regulator that the fuel on the market, first of all, has met the standard. And I mentioned to you that we went out there to take samples. The samples we took, the majority of the stations, their manganese level are extremely low, way below the maximum. And those are not causing problems. So the few consignments that came in that had this manganese level, and I think when we even check, the reason I'm sure we didn't even find them high manganese levels is that they've already been exhausted. They've already caused a problem. You know, these problems, they don't occur immediately when you buy the fuel. They came in at a point, they've been consumed. Unfortunately, they've already had a problem on the spark plugs. That's why I use myself as an example. Since I changed my spark plugs almost a month ago, I've been using the same company's fuel, and I've not had a problem, which is a sign that the product which may have caused that problem is already been consumed. But we have to continue to ensure that whatever standard has been set, the fuel that is being supplied has met that standard. But the proactive measure, like I've said, is let's amend them immediately and then encourage our importers to even start importing low manganese fuel with low manganese levels, even before the GSA revises the national standard.
Before we go for a break and come and pick calls, you say you've done a bit of checks. Do you know? So you've talked about some fuels, OMCs having 0.1, even 1. Others also having 12 to 17, which could be very high. Do you know have you checked with all the oil marketing companies to determine the levels of all of them in the country?
Okay, so first of all the oil marketing companies leave their products from depots, from almost the same depots. The depots are not as many as the filling stations. So when we are doing the checks, we start from the depot level. And the depot levels, we tested the majority of the depots have low manganese levels. So that's why it's easy to know where to solve the problem. So the supplier of the fuel to the oil marketing company, once we've tested and we realize that the BDCs, when we say that for this particular tank or this particular consignment, the manganese level is low, then that's where you have to apply the additive before supplying to the filling station. So that addresses the problem. But if you are going to go to the filling station level, there are too many filling stations. So you
dealt with the BDCs. You've done that.
Yes.
We can be assured.
Yes.
Hold on a minute. Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, who is head economic regulation of the National Petroleum Authority. Let's get onto the phone lines now. Franklin from Takrady, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, Franklin.
How are you doing?
God is taking care of his children. How about you?
I'm doing fine. My experience with my bike, my Kawasaki Ninja bike, and I'm a mechanic myself, so I do check plugs, fuel, and oil. But what I realized was that the station who have the goodwill, and we know that they sell good fuel, they don't. They really don't. And one station that I have to mention, but since you said you don't have to mention anything, when I went there, I asked them that the petrol that I'm buying is wrong. What? I asked the type of that I'm buying, and the guy told me that 85, and they are selling it at 13.46 cedis per liter. And I went to another station, and they were selling this. That's 195 at 13.46. And there were two stations that were competing, and even the first one that I bought from will have a greater market span than the second one I went to buy the 195 from. And since I bought that fuel from that time that I bought the 85, my bike, I have not had a smooth ride with my bike. Also, I tuned it to 95. So I think NPA is not doing the right thing.
You said around what? Around 85?
Around 95.
Yeah, okay.
Around 95. So I think NPA is not doing the right thing. If they are supposed to sell 91 and 95, you go to the station to check whether they are selling it. Because as you rightfully asked, that if I go to the filling station right now to buy a fuel, am I guaranteed to get the required quality that I want? And he was busy around the bush.
Thank you very much, Franklin. Would get your question answered. Let's come to Amrahia. Doreen, good morning.
Good morning, sir. My problem is, how will I even know that the fuel I'm buying is the right type I'm supposed to use in my car? Because my car, I didn't change the plugs, and the plugs are very, very expensive. Change the plug, use the car for just 2 weeks, and then the car started jerking again. And I'm supposed to change the plug again. And I buy fuel from an authentic fuel marketing company that is very renowned. Now you're not supposed to even mention the names. How sure am I that what I'm buying is the right thing? Because if our plugs are falling, very soon to get to the engine. And these days, companies are very expensive. Please, MPA and the standard box, please come up and do something for us, because this is becoming too much. It is just too much. And no, coming back, money is very difficult to come by these days. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doreen. You can also join us 0302-216-541 and then 055-1111-997. We're asking a very simple question. Have you had to change your spark plugs because of the fuel you bought recently? Join us and share that experience with us. Nanama from Adjungano. Good morning, Nana.
Hi, good morning, Winston.
Yes, Nanama, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I didn't even know I had bought bad fuel, but my car started working. And like the previous caller said, I buy my fuel from a very authentic fuel company here in Ghana. I don't even know why you're saying we should not mention their name, because how do we know which company to buy from? Really? Because when I changed my spark plugs, they were quite expensive, and I didn't even understand why a brand new car would start jerking like that until I listened to your program this morning. Now it's making sense to me that probably it is because I've been buying bikes, and I've been buying it from a particular company without changing.
Okay. Now, keep listening. We'll address all of these concerns. Let's go to Adenta. Frank, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, Frank.
Yes, I'm really glad to have tuned in this morning because I'm on my way to change my spark plugs.
Whoa.
Yes, and my mechanic has been explaining this to me that the fuel in the system is the reason why, and I was really angry because I thought probably he has been freezing me and buying big plugs for me, because this is the third time I'm going to change the plugs. And
okay,
I buy fuel from one company, so I think MP has to do more because the fuel is so expensive, and if it's causing us these problems, I'm not sure it's helpful for all of us.
Okay, Frank, thank you very much. Let's go to Dan Suman, where Eddie is. Eddie, good morning.
Good morning, Winston. Now, welcome to the NIP.
Come again, Eddie.
Now, welcome to the NIP.
Great.
Winston, it's quite unfortunate that you are saying we shouldn't mention any name, which would have done something good for this program that you are doing. I'm hoping that you do it tomorrow again as well. I use a turbo diesel engine, and I'm telling you that there are a number of some oil companies who are selling below the level standard. You see, we've made to know, because you use this fuel, you know the response of the engine, you use the other one, you know the response of the engine. And there are some who are selling substandard. It's unfortunate they don't want us to mention the names. And these people are doing business and reaching their pocket, and then some of our car engines are being damaged. It is not good. It is not right. It is not right. The top 4, there are a lot of what do you call it? We have I've forgotten even the word you used. You see, the top 4 oil companies. I can go anytime, any day buy, and I know that I'm okay with it. But the rest, do I have confidence? The man sitting there, the gentleman, is not giving me evidence. He's not giving me that convincing to be able to buy from them. And yet, for me, I'm not getting anything, any good information from him. He's not be able to convince me that if tomorrow I go to the pump station and buy fuel from any of the oil companies.
Well, he's told you that from the bulk oil distributors, the BDCs, they have actually now been advised to add additives, which they are doing. And so if you go and buy now, you wouldn't have problems. He's also told you that some of us may actually have to check our vehicles, because some of the vehicles we use have certain specifications of fuel that we must buy. Unfortunately, we don't check. And he's learnt his lessons the hard way, because his vehicle, he must buy fuel without manganese. So just think about it. So if you're supposed to buy, it must be at the lowest level. Hence the decision to reduce the standard from 18 to 6. Thank you very much, Eddie from Dansoman. Ribbon, I'll come to you after that. But let's go to Danfa, where Alex is, and he'll be our last caller for now. Alex, good morning. Okay, I think we've lost Alex. Let's get Abbas to address these questions. Abbas, I think one of the major problems is going forward. I mean, if I go to a fuel station today, how sure am I that I wouldn't have a problem?
So I think almost all the consumers are called. You can tell that one thing is running through.
Yeah.
They need assurance from the regulator that when they go to the station, they will go forward that meets the standards. Yes. So I think that's where we try to explain what the MPA does. You see, MPA is like the police. We will do our very best to make sure that all the players are doing what is right, and that is why we have several measures in place. One, when the product is coming into the country, we ensure it has met the standard. That is the first check. When the products get to the depot before they are loaded to the filling stations, we also ensure that we have what we call the Petroleum Product Marking Scheme, where we put chemical markers in the product. This is to ensure that the product that has been loaded from the depot on its way to the filling station has still met the standard, that is intact, because you know that from the depot to the retail outlet, something can happen. We used to have a situation where people load the product and then they adulterate it before they even get to take it to the filling station to sell to consumers. So the Petroleum Product Marking Scheme ensures that this thing is done. The quality is protected. Now, we have a team that goes around with what we call mobile labs, take samples on the spot, and then they test them to confirm that the product that has also been sold to consumers from the filling station, that product is still intact and has not been adulterated.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't mean that some people will still not do bad things. Those things could happen. That is why we are saying that when you have such an issue, report to the MP immediately. Issues about fuel quality, if you don't report immediately, let's say you delay in reporting to us, by the time we would have we'll go back to take sample, maybe that product that had the problem would have been sold.
So Abbas, let me make it very simple for you. You identify the problem. You say some consignment may have contained this. You would know the consignment that contained this. You know the BDCs. My simple question is today, can you tell us whether all the BDCs, including those that imported the consignment that had higher levels of manganese, have added the additives which you say, if added, would make it smooth for us?
Okay, so I think, but before I respond, my colleague Said is still, I think he's been able to address his issue with the voice. So maybe if he has Said, if you can hear us, you can make a comment so you can help with responding to the questions. But let me respond to that. I mentioned that these things, they don't happen immediately. When if manganese or any parameter in fuel will affect.
Yes, Said, I'll get back to you shortly.
Yeah, so if a manganese or anything will have impact on your vehicle, it doesn't happen. It takes some time. So this consignment came in some time, and they started having causing problems to people's vehicles. I'm saying that this consignment is no longer out, and all the products that have been coming in recently, Said will speak more to that because they check the quality. All these products have had the low manganese level, so it's not as if what is still coming or what's in the market now has that high manganese level. So let Said come in.
So hold on, yes.
after that.
Let me bring Said in at this point, because Said, since you are in charge of quality control, there's a very important issue for us. The current products in the country. Now, Abbas has told us that we have actually, reviewed the standards. Now is maximum 6 and maximum 2 for premium. The consignments that we have today, do they meet these standards? And if they don't, what is it that you have done to ensure that my vehicle is not going to be affected by these manganese levels?
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry for the inconvenience in joining. We've had the results. For instance, when the issue happened, as Abbas indicated, we've taken samples of all the people who have reported to us and also our own independent sampling. About 80% have manganese of less than 0.25 milligram per liter.
Okay.
The maximum manganese we found was 7 milligram per liter. Okay, so who tells you that we are back to normalcy? And if you look at the incident that happened, it occurred between a certain range of period, somewhere beginning of October. So actually, all the consignment that created this problem has been utilized.
Okay.
So the Abbas also mentioned that when you have high manganese today, you don't get the problem today. It's a build-on effect. That's why when you remove the plug, you realize that there is a lot of deposit on the plug and it's unable to ignite the fuel as it's supposed to be because of the deposits on it. So it's not a one-day issue. And sometimes you even have the build-up in the system, such that you have an after effect. So we've studied the trend and you realize that even Abbas vehicles, we've looked at it now, is doing better because the solution is to go back and buy there because we have added the antidote to the fuel. Okay, I hope that point is
When you
clear.
say you've added the antidote to the fuel, what do you mean?
We've added the additives that's supposed to remove these deposits on the plugs, not only on the plugs, on the valves and other sensors as well.
Okay.
So as you continue to use the fuel that have the additives, then the cleansing effect is, affected and the vehicle gets better with time.
Okay.
It's just unfortunate, as Abbas indicated, that this has happened. And the key point is that all the product met specification. It's just that we were not used to that high range of manganese that were coming between 16, 15. We were having all of them like what I have shown you. But because the standard permit, but by way of the source product they were bringing, we had manganese that never were crossing around 10 milligram per liter. But unfortunately, those consignments that had the manganese at that level, you see that it selectively affected some group of vehicles because it affects your emission control system and that leads to non-performance and build-up in the system. So yes, we can guarantee to all listeners that the problem has been solved. And if you look at the complaints, it has gone drastically. I would say it has gone down by 90% because as the additives has been added, people are using and is cleansing the system. I'm sure we are out of the woods.
And I'm sure this has also taught you that sometimes you must actually set high standards. Because here we were, 18, but because they were importing, bringing 6, 7 in, you didn't have a problem. Until they went to 14, 15, then you realized we had a problem.
Indeed, you are very right, but there is always a very, it's a conundrum we sometimes face, particularly in the standard process. So you have SOTO who is represented in the committee. You have under industry who is represented in the committee. I am a member of the committee. All those members are arguing to the committee while some parameters should not be changed. So it's just that this have taught us hard lessons that we have to take the hard decisions going forward.
Okay.
You recall that when the sulfur issue was taken to reduce, Ghana became the first in the West Africa to do that. And we are among the best in the African sub-region. When we took that decision, the local industry, a lot of people came at the back of MPA that you are collapsing the local industry and that you are knocking them out of business. That is the conundrum I mentioned. We are at a crossroad now where we have to decide that now we have vehicles that actually need some grade of fuel. You get in or you get out.
Okay. Well, Ubedela Said Kutia, who is Head Quality Control of the National Petroleum Authority, thank you very much for joining us. Sad we couldn't have you joining early. But finally from you, Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, who is Head of Economic Regulation of the NPA. We're wrapping up. We're going. Said is giving us the assurance. Anything else you want to say?
So what I would like to say is that we as a regulator, we know that when these issues happen, sometimes people kind of seem to say, well, when we report, nothing happens. But when people report, a lot happens. Sometimes things don't go as fast as you want them to be because these are issues that you have to investigate and make and sometimes legalities come in. So we would like to continue to encourage consumers that when you have these issues, don't feel to report to MP. Report to MP immediately. And if you permit me, I would like to give our consumer service line so you can reach us on WhatsApp. We have 2 WhatsApp lines, 0545 006111, 0545 006111, and 0545 006112. You can reach us on WhatsApp to report anything. And then we have a Vodafone toll-free line, which is 0800 123 00. 0800 12300. We would like to encourage consumers to report any issues they have with fuel to MPA, and be rest assured that we will always, and those who have reported before, a lot of them will confirm to you that we've really gone to the bottom of the matter to resolve their issues, because these issues about fuel, bad fuel, poor quality fuel, sometimes you buy fuel from a station, several factors could lead to what you are talking about, so we need to look into them. So please report to MPA, and we are there to ensure that the consumer gets value for money for the fuel they buy.
Thank you very, very much, Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, Head of Economic Regulation at the National Petroleum Authority, for joining us. This is the Super Morning Show. Stay with us. Before we go, yes, please put out the numbers again.
So the numbers again. On WhatsApp, you can reach us on 0545 006111, and then 0545 006112.
Okay.
And the Vodafone toll free is 0800 12300.
Thank you very much.